you're developing recipes, like for the next book, how do you go about that? Is that just you just think of different things and then just lots and lots of trial and error, or what is your mythology?
Yeah, so Megan's asking what the process is when I'm coming up with recipes for the new cookbook, for instance. So the second cookbook was easy because I had a lot of the recipes. The first cookbook, I did test 130 baking recipes, which was really tiresome. It really got to be really problematic. No, it's hard. If you guys want to get off sugar, write a cookbook with 150 recipes. That's all. It's really a lot of sugar. So I shared it with my husband and his coworkers and my neighbors. I basically, everything, so now this one's about color. So, everything's, I want it to be really easy, I want it to be really flavorful, and I want it to be familiar. So I'll literally think, okay, pink, red, okay, what do I want to do? All right. Well, I'll tell you what I just came up with that I didn't come up with, it's not original, but I'm in the blue section. And so I thought, blueberry ketchup, because ketchup wasn't originally made with tomatoes in the first place. So I thought blueberry ketchup, let's do some blueberry ketchup. So it's really just kind of thinking first about what the intention is around it, what the food, what the color is. Also breaking those up by, dessert and main dish and side dishes, and I want to kind of put it in that section. So I just kind of think about what would people really be making, or what they really want to make at home, and what would be the most helpful possible. And then I test it, and I'm really annoyed when I don't do it on the first try. Often we do. It's actually pretty cool, and I'm surprised at that too. I'm like, wow, okay, all right, and then I hand it on to testers who volunteer to test in their own kitchen, and then we get to eat it. And it's really, really nice for the people who make it nice for you. And last thing, if he ever cooks, and he doesn't cook so much anymore. Pretty good cook, cook a little bit, but he does all the dishes. And he's a CTO, unpaid. That's cool. Yeah, so that's kind of the process. Yeah, it's just, and really, I want to make things that I'm going to eat and that I can eat that night for dinner. So it's really about how it can work for me at that very moment. Yeah, it's really selfish. I mean, that way. That's what's nice about at least doing the savory recipes. When I was doing the baking recipes, I don't bake every day. I mean, I don't make cookies every day, so it's hard. But doing recipes that I eat, it's been really good because I want to eat dinner anyway. Yeah. So I'll make something that I can use for dinner that night. So if you're ever thinking, oh, maybe Colleen's testing a recipe tonight. Thank you. Yeah, so the question is how I started on this path. I basically started as an activist many years ago when I found out about these issues when I was about 19 or 20 reading John Robbins' book, Diet for New America. I was stunned like most of us who don't know, or like most of us who don't want to know, and I had no idea. And so when I read this book, it was the first time I had ever seen these pictures, I had ever read about these issues. They're kept hidden from us, and it just woke me up. It was my first aha moment. Certainly starting me on the path, and so that was the beginning of my journey. I did not want to be part of it. I knew, you just feel so driven and so compelled to do something, and I think that's the thread that most of us can experience. You just have this drive to want to make it stop and do something. And I can't think of anything more appropriate than, at least in my own life, stopping and at least contributing what I can. So I immediately stopped eating land animals, but I still made my excuses. I was getting organic milk, and I was getting, free-range eggs, and all these little marketing terms that help us sleep at night. And I had no idea still, but luckily I still stayed on the path, and I was still doing other animal activism around puppy mills and other things. So the more I learned, the more I wanted to pass on to other people, and the more I found that people had the same response, which is, what do I do? What do I eat? I want to do this, but what do I eat? What about protein? And what about protein? And what about protein? And sometimes they'd ask what about protein, but not too often. And I thought, well, people need answers to these questions, and they're certainly available. I mean, people have access to this information, but somehow it wasn't being packaged in a way that was really resonating. So, very highly trained with a master's in English literature, I started teaching cooking classes. So, people ever ask you what you're going to do with a degree in English literature, I teach cooking classes, obviously. So, I literally started teaching. And that's how it all began. And the more I found that there were more questions people had during the classes. I mean, people come to these classes so eager. Just feed me the food, of course. But the information, they just want want it so desperately. And once one little crack opens and the little light gets through, you just want more and more. So then I did the DVD because I wanted people to have access outside of the Bay Area. And then the cookbook came along, and the podcast came from that. So it's all about figuring out what the public is asking for, what they want, what gap needs to be filled. And I literally just do it. And so people were worried, people were like, I thought this was a really great idea, this thing happened, and you should really do that, you should get on that. So that's great, you can get on it. Like, there's a lot for all of us to do. My plate is full, but there's so much to do, and there's so much information to give, and people want it so badly. So I don't care what your background is, or what you think you do or do not know, what expertise you have. Just being able to be a joyful vegan, have the information, and pass it on to people, it's just so vital. It's just so important. Yeah. Yes?
I'm just kind of curious, there's some really wonderful people talking a lot about consciousness around food, and not just calling it barbecue culture. They kind of stop short in terms of talking a lot about, focusing more on plants and vegetables and fruits, but still leaving room for meat. How do you work with that to help people get that meat to letting go? I'd just like to hear it from yourself.
Sure. The question is, there's a lot of people talking about food and consciousness these days. Michael Pollan, for instance, the Barbara King solver, and they certainly get a lot of attention and a lot of press. And how do I feel about that? Very good question. How do I feel about it? I think that everything that helps people think differently is good. The problem is that with those particular people that you're naming, I do have a name for them. It's not a bad name. But I call them excusitarians. Because, even if you read Michael Pollan's book, and he tells his story about his kind of, his own internal argument with Peter Singer around animal rights, he basically is coming to the place of Peter's winning. Okay, he's trying to debate this, his kind of philosophy and Peter Singer's philosophy. He's an animal liberation, he's an animal activist, and he's been writing about this for a long time. And he basically comes to the conclusion that Peter's right. And then he takes basically a U-turn and says, but I really like eating meat, and here's how I can justify it. It's right there. It's right there in black and white. And that's what I think is really frustrating for me, but that's what's so beautiful. Because I don't have to say anything other than what they already know. It's all right there. He's already basically just making excuses for what he's doing because he wants to keep doing it. And you look at all of these people, they romanticize it so much. I have never seen people romanticize the consumption of animals than these people who I put in this group called excusitarians. It's really anybody who is romanticizing it. But what do we do with that? What do we do with that? That's the big question. I'm not on the radar screen of these people, and I'm not on the radar screen of the people who are, some people are expanding and reading these books. So it's a hard one. All I can do is keep doing my work and keep putting this work out that has credibility and beauty and consciousness and compassion and spreading that seed so that more people will put those words out there and be able to at least speak to those excuses and those justifications and be able to at least say, well, that's interesting. I'm also compassionate and I'm also conscious, because I'm always amazed that they can talk so romantically about the way they kill the animals. They basically will say, we hug them and we love them and we massage them while we kill them. And I think, but isn't it nicer than to massage them and hug them and love them and not kill them at all? Isn't that more compassionate than slitting their throat? And that's basically what's going on. And someone needs to just say that. I think people are just so afraid to speak back to that because they come to that point and say, I'm doing it, I'm doing the right thing, and I'm eating animals that are happy and it's humane and all of these things. And someone needs to just say, well, let's talk about that. What does that really mean? So, it's hard. I don't have the answer for, I don't have the big answer, but what I do know is that we have to speak back to it and speak our own truth about it so that they can stop taking the word compassion. Because what's the new book out there right now, The Compassionate Carnivore? They don't deserve that word. They don't deserve that word. That's not compassion. That's not compassion. So that's all I ask.